Israel is currently attacking 6 different UN agencies at the same time. Israel recently banned UNRWA, the UN Relief and Works Agency, from operating in their territory, which to them includes occupied Palestine. And at the same time, they've been attacking another UN group, the UN Interim Force in Lebanon. Inside Gaza, the IOF have bombed polio vaccination sites run by the WHO and attacked UNICEF aid workers with quadcopters. The IOF are also actively destroying UNESCO World Heritage sites all over Gaza and Lebanon. Israel has also ignored the authority of the ICJ for decades. And as always, this is all done with zero consequences and with the protection of the United States. This is an extremely dangerous trend that ultimately leads to the delegitimization of the United Nations in general. And historically, this is part of the reason why the League of Nations eventually failed to stop World War II. The League of Nations was created in 1920 after World War I, and it's basically the version 1 of the UN. The League ultimately failed for a few different reasons, but a major one was that Western powers still did whatever they wanted, even if it meant overlooking war crimes. For example, in 1935, fascist Italy invaded Abyssinia, which is modern-day Ethiopia, starting the Second Italo-Ethiopian War. During their invasion, Italy broke numerous international laws, including using chemical weapons. Abyssinia appealed to the League of Nations, and the League called for sanctions against Italy. Except those sanctions were never properly enforced and didn't include restrictions on the oil, coal, iron, or steel that were fueling Italy's invasion. Britain and France even let Italy keep using the Suez Canal, which they controlled at the time, as a shortcut from the Mediterranean to East Africa. The League of Nations even prevented other nations in the League from trading weapons to Abyssinia, making it harder for them to defend themselves from the Italians. Meanwhile, Britain and France were secretly creating the Hoare-Laval Pact with Mussolini, the leader of fascist Italy, which would have allowed Italy to annex 2/3 of Abyssinia, basically giving the fascists exactly what they wanted. The whole crisis led to the League of Nations being entirely discredited. Smaller countries realized that when push comes to shove, the global majority would still be thrown under the bus. And other fascist leaders like Hitler noticed the lack of action from the League and realized that the League of Nations wasn't a real threat to the Nazis. All of this ultimately created the conditions for World War II. And we're seeing a very similar trend in Palestine today. Israel's constant attacks on the UN and the United States' unconditional support reveals to the world the limits of the UN and discredits it as a global authority. Which is all very ironic too, because after all, Israel wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for the UN. But this all reveals that one of the same core issues as the League of Nations still remains, that the UN wasn't created to protect the world, it was created to protect the interests of the West. And when that happens, it lays the conditions for the whole thing to fail. That's why we all need to keep pressuring our governments to enforce the ICJ opinion as mandated by the UN resolution overwhelmingly passed a couple months ago, and start applying sanctions and arms embargoes against Israel. It's amazing that Ireland just passed legislation to do just that, but we need to keep going, because if not, the whole world just became a lot more dangerous. If you made it this far, here's how you can help. If you're in the position to donate monetarily, please check out the fundraiser for Amal Al-Ajouri. Her family is currently in North Gaza and facing extremely dire circumstances. I have a public action toolkit in my link tree, as well as quick tasks that you can do, including sending evidence to the ICJ or to Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese. Also in my link tree, I have other mutual aid options and guides on how to donate an eSIM, which can help someone in Gaza connect to the outside world. And if you like my videos and you want to support, please consider subscribing to The Conscious Citizens, an initiative by my studio to help us all stay politically active. Whatever it is, do at least one thing today in support of a free Palestine.